Well, hi. Thanks for coming tonight to the Austin Mobile Web and Indie Game Dev Meetup. So we're definitely excited to hear everyone's talks tonight. We have two great speakers. I guess let me first do a little bit of housekeeping and announcements and stuff, and I'll talk about the schedule for tonight and how things will unfold, all that type of stuff. So, as you may or may not know, this meetup is held every fourth Tuesday at Capital Factory. So we try to be pretty consistent about that. Sometimes we miss a month or something like that. But oh, hey, what's up? Sorry, I didn't see you. So sometimes we miss a month, but you know, we try to do it pretty consistently. So definitely keep an eye out on the meetup.com page for announcements of future events. And if you haven't already, joined the page so that way you get emails and all that whenever we announce stuff, so you can come and check it out. Let's see. Also, I don't know if you know, but you're welcome to park for future events in the Omni Hotel garage, which is down below the hotel and offices here. And as long as you arrive after 6 p.m., then you can get a discounted rate of $5 for the night if you get a validation ticket from the people at the front desk at Capital Factory here. Yes, and definitely be sure and get that, because if you don't, it can be super expensive, like crazy, I don't know, $25 or something. So definitely worth it to get the validation ticket. And let's see. Also, I wanted to say we don't have any sponsors for tonight other than Capital Factory itself. Obviously, we're very thankful to them for letting us use this space and the awesome room and all that, great facility. So be sure and say thanks to them if you get a chance. And also, we're always looking for sponsors for helping out with the cost of the food and the drinks and all that kind of stuff. So if you know of a company here in town who wants to help, you know, throw us a few dollars to, you know, help support this community group, then definitely get in touch with me. You can reach me on the Meetup group. Just on the page, it says, there's a thing on the side that says contact the organizer, and I'll get an email. So definitely send any stuff my way to that effect. Let's see. Also, as far as presenters, we're always looking for people to talk. We have you know, a pretty small but active community of people here in town who are making games that are the kind of thing we're wanting to feature. You know, we definitely want people who are working on, like I said, mobile or web or indie games, something that's on a small team, or you know, solo creator, someone who's releasing stuff on new platforms, like, you know, even if it's you know, something for like a smartwatch or for VR or something like that. We're definitely interested in all these sort of new areas that games are going, and kind of the new frontiers that people are exploring. So definitely get in touch if you have something that you want to talk about, even if you have a project that's not fully 100% complete, or if it's not this super polished thing, even if you have some lessons that you've learned in the process of working on it, something that you totally messed up and you want to warn other people away from making the same mistakes. We're always happy to, you know, have you share and share the wisdom and that kind of thing. So again, get in touch with me if you're interested. Let's see. So at this point, I would like to open up the floor to some announcements. If anybody is looking to hire someone for a game dev position, or if you are looking for someone to collaborate with on a project that's game related, then feel free to stand up and say something. Or if there's some kind of event coming up here in town that's, you know, game development related, maybe another meetup group or another you know, kind of conference or whatever, definitely say the word and let us know what's going on. So, yeah.
Hi, I'm Taylor. Drew and I created a company that is building tools to help develop indie game communities, specifically engaging with community like indie games, like user base, right? And so we're looking for a front-end developer, somebody with JavaScript experience. We're building with React, so if you have React experience, that would be great. But yeah, just happy to talk to people while we're working on if anyone's interested.
That sounds awesome. That's cool.
Thank you. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any other? John, any announcements? IGDA?
Other than tonight, afterwards, it's actually running until 10 o'clock, is the Austin VR Meetup. It's happening at the North Door at Fifth and Brushy, which is just east of I-35. So I think Samsung was actually going to be there tonight to show off their gear. So those guys have got connections, and granted that, as I said, I think last time, that is the new gold rush. There's so many companies, and basically everyone up to and including Epson is trying to enter this space, either AR or VR. And the division between AR and VR, whether you're basically strapping an entire iPad to your face and removing all other sensation, or something you can see through, both are big time, and there are so many developers that are so interested in it. They just have to find people who want to spend money on more gadgets.
Yeah.
So hopefully they'll be able to do that.
Totally. No, that sounds awesome. Thanks for letting us know about that. And yeah, that sounds like a great event. I didn't mean to double book with that. So by all means, if y'all want to head over afterwards, check it out. So, anyone else? Any other announcements or seeking collaborators or hires? All right. Well, so I guess the schedule for tonight is that we're going to have maybe a 35 to 40-minute talk from Lauren Ellis of Ignis Studios. I'll let her tell you more about herself. And then after that, she'll have about maybe 10, 15-minute Q&A. And then after that, we're going to have about a 10 to 15-minute talk from Jennifer Bullard from Captivate and many other illustrious backgrounds. And then after that, we'll have a short Q&A as well. So I guess if you have any questions while they're talking, are people welcome to interject during your talk, or would you rather them hold questions to the end or whatever?
I don't mind.
Okay. All right. So yeah, you can, if you have a burning question at that exact moment, feel free to raise your hand. Otherwise, you can hold it until the end. They'll address it then. Let's see. Also, I guess between the talks, we're going to kind of roll straight from one to the other without any real break, because we do have to be out of here by 9 o'clock for Capital Factory. The staff members want to go home and they don't want to hang out necessarily all night. So we want to leave some time at the end for people to chat and talk and all that. So if we do finish before 9, feel free to grab more food or drinks and hang out and talk, but try to filter out by that time. And so without further ado, I guess, Lauren, take it away.
Awesome. Well, like he said, my name is Lauren Ellis. I have been a web designer since about 2008, and currently the creative director at a digital design agency here downtown called Masonry Interactive. I am a serial entrepreneur, unfortunately, which leads into the next bullet point. I am the co-founder and art director at my own indie game studio called Ignis Studios. I really just wanted to look over what it takes to find your voice, what is UX in game development, and then start to look at how others brought their voice into UX. These are the games that I'm working on because I wanted to show off my pretty art skills. So my husband and I were at a house party not too long ago, and there happened to be 2 guys there that worked at AAA Studios. And we ended up talking about game development, and they asked me a question that has really helped shape how I view game development. And that question I'm going to ask all of you tonight is, why do you game dev? It's very easy to create, and it's not as easy to finish. So why do you do what you do? Specifically, in game development, what is your passion? What really gives you goosebumps and makes you feel energized by the end of the day? A brief history about myself. I started my first business in 4th grade as a pet sitter, and graduated high school early, did online art school, started my first job, or first career job, I guess you could say, as a web designer at 18, married by 19. Started and failed 2 businesses by 25, and have helped since launch 4 more. So I've been busy, yes. So for me, I've tried a lot of different things, and for some reason or another, I can't seem to quit game dev. I'm hooked on it. And I'm answering that question myself of why do I game dev? I've discovered it's an outlet for me to express the feelings or stories or whatever it is in my head and have other people go through that through firsthand experience. But it's taken me 3 years to figure that out. So I asked myself, well, Lauren, how did you discover your own voice? And I wanted to give you guys some tips on what has helped me kind of figure out, for lack of better words, who I am. Everyone has a voice, and it's unique to this world. The first tip is write about everything. Write about your struggles, your success, your dev progress, your cat, anything. It doesn't matter, just write. It doesn't have to be good. You don't even have to share it, but being able to put your thoughts into words helps define what you're passionate about. So that's tip number 1. Another thing that has helped me in terms of visual design is collecting anything, whether it's quotes, backgrounds, characters. I just drop everything into a Dropbox, and whenever I feel stuck, I go through it and find common themes. So these are actually all things from my Dropbox, and you can see I really like blocky, colorful, minimalistic kind of art. And it's helped me kind of discover who I am visually, so to speak. And then the last thing that has surprisingly helped me is find your role models. I kid you not, I stalked John Watson and Artie Jorgensen from Stoic and bribed them with free time food and got to ask them a lot of questions about game development. And it was just a really awesome hour or so of hearing about their mistakes, their success, what worked and what didn't, and they really inspired me. So find someone. There's dozens of people here in Austin who have gone through the same mistakes that you do, and learn from them. And even if your role model isn't in Austin, read about them, listen to their talks, study their tactics and learn. So, saying that you did find your voice, how do you actually implement that in game development? And I argue that it's through user experience. What I don't mean is user interface, even though people use them kind of the same. That is very hard to read, so I apologize. User experience design is the entire package, whereas user interface is an important inner element of that. I will share this with you all later. It's a picture I found on the internet, so it's interesting, I think. The entire package is what makes UX. And user experience is basically the interaction between a human and a computer, helping the human complete a task outside of the interface. Good branding looks at when your user first engages to the very last impressions. And you want your design to center around the user's emotions, regardless of whether or not they're frustrated from a long day of work. You want to help guide how they feel through your game. If you're only one piece of a development team, you have the opportunity to make the experience the best it can be. And if you are in control of everything, then you get to decide everything, and that's really fun, I think. But what is UX in game development? I'm from a web background, and so when I started comparing the two, you really just can't. They're not the same goals and interactions that you're searching for. And so I put together a list of things that build up good game experience. And I shared it with my husband, and he said, yeah, Lauren, this is what builds a game. And I said, well, hey, I thought this was really clever. But you have to go through and, yes, all these things build a game, but they also build an experience. And you have to think through each one on how the user will interact with it. So the first one is motivations. Who's your target audience, and why do they play your game? What is the upfront interestingness of your game, and how are you going to keep them interested over time? The next one is obviously choice. What kind of choices are available to the player? Games work best when there's partial ambiguity between which actions will result in better or worse outcomes. Balance. Are your events and experiences timed well? That one is short. Aesthetics. How are your image and sounds? How are the feedback on your controllers? And does your game tell a good tone, good story? Does your character have development, follow a logical arc? Usability. Does the player understand why they've lost or why they've won? And are the actions and objectives clear? Mechanics. Is the gameplay easy to master, or does it feel flat and repetitive? Is the mechanic lasting and challenging, or does it just feel fun at first and then gets old quickly? And then finally, monetization. Does the player feel like they got a good value for what they spent? And if you have in-app purchases, does it mess with the timing and the balance of the game? All of these things build into the experience, and they leave lasting impressions. We need to be concerned about the quality of the experience. Traditional UX designers are accustomed to thinking of experiences as what people as what people enjoy because they're completing some objective outside of the interface, like I mentioned before. But video games are different. We play them for exactly what they are, games, which gives game designers a new kind of responsibility: to design player experiences that they themselves are reason enough to play. It's important to keep in mind that good UX is simple. It's consistent. And if you know what kind of experience you want to create, it makes all of those decisions easier. And so, I wanted to look at some other indie studios on how they represented their voice through good user experience. And this is where I think it's fun. All right, so my first personal obsession, as my husband knows, I'm playing at 3 in the morning, threes. Touch Arcade called it a perfect mobile game. And Ken Wong, the lead designer of Monument Valley, which if you know that game, you know it causes any visual designer to drool uncontrollably, said that Threes is one of the most elegantly designed games since Tetris. And I also love Tetris, in case you're wondering. But why? Threes is you combine 1 and 2 together to make 3, 3 and 3 to make 6, and so on. But how did they end up making $4,000 a day, considering they're a one-time purchase app? One thing that I think makes the game so engaging is that each block, each number, is a character. They have their own voice, they have their own personality, they have their own sayings, they even have a backstory. And no, I have not gotten to Terrence yet. I'm not that good, apparently. Threes started as a sliding numbers game, where you would slide all the numbers into a hole. The hole became a mouth, and the mouth became a monster. And even then, the game was still not fun. Asher Vollmer, one of the developers, sent an email to his team saying, Threes in its current state is not worth releasing. Then he randomly had that thing that we all wish we could have and make $4,000 a day, which is that aha moment of, let's combine the numbers together. So while they were in the middle of character creation, they got ripped off in one afternoon. And I actually started with 2048 and played it nonstop until I beat it dozens of times. All right, that makes me sound obsessive, but it's a little true. And never came back to it. So why is something like Threes so much more lasting than 2048? And it was a debate in my own household on which one was better, but I'm letting Wired say it, where they simply said, design is why 2048 sucks, and Threes is a masterpiece. Threes is a consistent experience overall. They could have released the game just as a puzzle, but instead they spent months developing characters, and not all made the cut. When you play, you get rewarded with their little quips, their little cheers. If you wait too long, they're like, boring, like they sass you. And the music is perfect, cheerful Dracula-esque. But even beyond that, the game is not about monsters. It's about numbers. But because of the time and the heart that they put into every aspect, from the mechanics, to the sound, to the music, the tutorial, which they say you can learn in a minute, and it's true, it builds a single cohesive experience. It's friendly, it's addicting, and it's quirky. Even though I've never met the designers, I feel like I know their personality through threes. And they created a consistent experience for a lasting game. Slide. The next game is kind of the exact opposite, Limbo. It's dark, it's morbid, and it's absolutely gorgeous. There's no dialogue, and yet you feel deeply moved by the story. You learn new tactics from clues, and so many frustrating deaths. And then those mechanics might not repeat again, but it was something that the developers were passionate about including. Playdead's CEO, Dino Patti, said, "It's really hard to explain. It's impossible to explain because you just have to get your hands on it and try it." Now, I don't think I can play it from here, so I gotta go over here. There you go. All right. So before they were a studio, Art Jensen, Playdead's game director, became dissatisfied with the increasingly corporate nature of a AAA studio that he worked at. He would sketch mood images of a secret place to get ideas, and the result was similar to the final backgrounds in Limbo. Those sketches turned into an art-based teaser, which this is actually the art-based teaser before the game, and this turned into the beginnings of an indie studio. You can really see the style and the tone that they wanted to convey even before they made the game. And I'll just let it finish. Everyone's just like drooling a little bit. He gets like, I'm impatient. See, and then he jumps, and then yay, and then, all right. Okay. Okay, there we go. Patti mentioned that they trashed over 70% of their original concepts, saying it's all about trying things and throwing it out when it doesn't work. They also stuck to their guns. They were given outside advice from investors and from critics during the development, such as adding multiplayer, making the game longer, and adjusting difficulty levels. They didn't want to commit to a major publisher because they wanted to keep full creative control. When asked if they are happy with the game, and if they would have done anything differently, Dino Patti said he's actually very happy with it all. And I am glad, because it's an amazing game. The lack of dialogue, the story, the level design, the tone, the sound, the controls, all of it builds into this intense gaming experience. You can clearly see the voice from Playdead, as if their company name didn't give it away already. They're quiet, they're thoughtful, and they're morbid. When asked about their next work, Inside, Patti simply said, color, freak show, and more death. So buy it today, guys. Yeah. They obviously know their voice, and they obviously know what they want to contribute to the game industry. So now for something completely different. This is one of our own games. It's called Clockwork. It is currently unfinished and actually very much on pause. It is something that I was hesitant about showing because it is still in development, but it's a really good example of why you prototype. And it's really hard to talk about UX without prototyping. It started as this concept of, we want to make fun circles and jump on trampolines, which then my brother and I took off running with it of, we're going to make it represent life and struggles, and it's going to be this really complex, zen, quiet game. The concept of it is you cannot die, and that you're going to struggle through the puzzles, but once you get through them, you feel very accomplished. So we had created a message, we created the design, we found some really beautiful music that matched the tone of it, and we created some challenging levels. Now this, don't judge me, that was an easy level. We were invited to show our game at Austin Chronicles Game On event, as well as Captivate Conference, and both of which were really good for us. We put together a quick prototype of a level and had over 100 people come through and play it. Quick disclosure, this is a terrible video. It's painful, and I'm not going to watch it because I can't. It was at Game On, and a journalist he's like, hey, can you play through the game? And I was tired, and I had a headache, and I wanted to go home. And of course I said, yes! So I struggle in places a human should not struggle. And anyway, but I wanted you to see the mechanics of it and what I'm going to talk about here. So let's play that. So, the first thing that we noticed when we had people play it was that they didn't know where to go, even though I thought it was very clear, but they didn't know where to go. And then there were a lot of people that just kind of walked away without really, yes, see this? Oh my gosh. It's over here too. All right, there we go. I did it, okay, good. So the other thing was, I thought it was very clever to jump off a ledge onto a trampoline. I thought it was really fun. Apparently, in the rest of the world, that means death. Yes. Yes, so everyone would gasp with fear. There we go. Good job, Lauren. As they fell and thought they died. Then the last thing was when they actually hit the trampoline, you're supposed to let gravity take you. But they were timing their jump, which had a real-life trampoline effect where it just kind of stopped.
Double bouncing.
Double bouncing, exactly. So they were falling into these death traps that they were afraid of in the first place, and I forced them to fall into, and not able to get back out. So the purpose of showing this game was really to point out that despite us knowing what we wanted the game to be, what we wanted the player to feel and experience, because we had one aspect off a little bit, it didn't come across. So we had our voice, but it didn't come through clearly. All right, and then the other game is another one of mine, and it's called Mosaic. This is actually the first game that we have developed, and it's currently the only game in the App Store. If you look at the title in the App Store, of which it was not there because I don't like it, it's a Lights Out clone. Which is an old game where you have to turn all the lights off. You hit a tile and it affects the tiles around it. So in our case, we haven't turned on. My developer had a prototype and it was not beautiful. So we wanted to polish it up and release it for the experience of making a game. Slide. All right, there we go. So we went down a lot of wrong directions. And that includes 2 months of trying to make triangles work. It ended up with my husband just saying, this game is not fun, I don't like this. The brain just, it mathematically works, it is solvable, but the brain will hate you for it. So if you want to make a Lights Out clone, don't use triangles. So, but what we did do, running back over here again. I obviously need to figure out my video system here, was we decided on a gameplay, which was squares, thankfully. Your brain says, yay. And a style, which is minimalistic Zen, and a purpose. And that purpose is really what I wanted to focus on. Let's see if I can control from here. Yeah. As a newbie to the game industry, I saw Mosaic as a way to define myself. We have every intention of continuing and creating more and better games, but Mosaic was our platform, and how people view us for future titles would be based on the success or demise of Mosaic, and I wanted to create a very positive impression. So once we had finished the game, and it came for time of release, we talked about monetization. I didn't feel like in-app purchases were going to work for my game, and we discussed ads. But from the tone of the simplicity and the visual design, ads would have gotten in the way of seeing this and having crushed white strips popping up in your face. I felt like it would ruin the experience. And we thought about one-time purchase, but being an unknown studio with one game being released for the first time, we weren't really sure people would pay. So one thing that we did do was use Chris Zabrisky's music. If you Google him, he's worked with clients like PBS, Adidas, Wall Street, and Nissan. So he knows what he's doing. But what's really interesting is he shares all of his personal work under a Creative Commons license. So you can use it for free as long as you credit him for it. And it's really good. It's really good music, guys. So you should totally use it. He said about his music, release it in the wild in a way that encourages new things to be created from it. And don't penalize someone who might get lucky enough to make money in the process. Let people do what they want with your music and they'll promote you. Then keep moving forward. Keep creating something new to share. So although this doesn't directly apply to our game, we kind of wanted to follow suit with Mosaic. I viewed Mosaic as having two main goals. The first being creating a positive impression of Ignis Studios and getting as many people to learn our brand as possible. And then two was to give out a little thank you to all the fans who've been waiting patiently for all of our other games. So I know it's not the best business model, but we released it completely for free. There's no in-app purchases, there's no ads, nothing. It's just a game with Ignis Studios' name behind it. Somehow it worked for us. We got our name out. We've gotten over 32,000 downloads and really positive reviews. Plus, more fans knowing about Ignis Studios than ever before. So, what is the lesson of all of those case studies? Obviously from Clockwork Prototype. You might think you have the best experience, but you won't know until you have someone go through it. And to be a little bit more specific, that someone being your target audience. Keep it simple. During both Threes and Mosaic, we tried to improve the game by piling it with features. Don't lose good experience by burying it with features. Just focus on the core gameplay. Don't be afraid to cut. All of those games had to cut massive amount of work, which was months of development. And I know the thought of, hey, I've worked X many months on this, I can't lose it. But if the feature does not improve the experience, then cut it. And lastly, use your own voice to produce a more, don't be afraid to let your personality show. I know that that sounds like advice to give a complicated 6th grader, but really, be yourself. Whether you are cheerful, snarky, or morbid like Playdead, or whatever the hell I am, let your voice come out. Your own voice will produce a more authentic game experience for the users. Because really, you're creating an experience through your own game. Through your code, your graphics, your music, your writing, even the annoying notifications, you're making the user feel emotions, for better or worse. You get to have a voice in this industry. And who knows, you might even make the next game-changing title. So I started with a question, and I wanted to leave you with one, which is, what kind of voice do you want to have? I went really fast. Questions? Yeah.
There's beautiful slides.
Thank you.
Yeah. They were really nice.
Designer much? Yeah. Yeah.
You said you had 32,000. Just congratulations, that's awesome.
Thanks.
How did, besides going to those shows, what else did you do, or did they just find you through the App Store, or how did people find your game?
So, it's a really good question. I think it broke down to 5,000 being at Apple, like 8,000 being Android, and surprisingly the most were Windows Phone. There's apparently not games on Windows phones, so it just like took off there. I think it got featured a few times, which helped, and you know, I didn't spend too much time with it because I kind of threw it out like, yay, we made a game. And I contacted some press, but we did get some reviews, but it really wasn't more than like half a dozen. So how can that help you? That's a good question.
Finding niche audiences.
Finding niche audiences, yeah. And
Page first to market is
Build.
really good.
Yeah,
And there's a
especially
reason
on
that the
platform.
first 10 apps on the App Store were multimillionaires, is because they were the first 10 apps on the
Yeah.
App Store. So if you're doing content, good
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
yeah, that's a really good point. Yes.
Just wondering, what did you do for testing the game with users to get real feedback as opposed to showing it to friends and things like that?
What did I do? Like, how did I get in front of them, or like, how did I have them play?
Yeah, just how many people tested it, and then how
Sure.
did you find these individuals?
So what we used for Clockwork was being in Game On and being in the Captivate Conference, and anybody that just came by would play the game, and as soon as I would try to be away because it's kind of weird to have someone like, what do you think of my game, guys? Do you like it? Do you like it? I had like a notebook with me and would take notes of their, how would you say it? Well, what they would say as they played the game, as well as what they wouldn't say. So any times that they would tense up, when they would get relieved, I would try to take notes of all that. And then one thing that I think is really good for prototyping is being critical of your own work. So asking what could make this better. So that was what worked for us, because yeah, we didn't really just send it out to a bunch of buddies. But I have read, and you chime in anytime. Okay, just come up here. Like online forums and communities.
There's online forums, there's lots of ways to get people to play test
Oh, so you just said I have a game and you put on the forum and then they get back to you and coordinate what you're gonna play.
It also depends, it depends on your target audience as well. So say, for example, you're trying to make something for the general populace. I heard this great idea, and I don't know if you ever followed through on it, but I'm curious if somebody did to find out. Go to a DMV where people are stuck. I've been playing their iPhone games and their iPad games, right? They're stuck at the DMV for like 2 hours, and some snide-nosed kid is screaming their head off. And you just walk up and go, I'll release your, I'll relieve you of your tedium. Can you play my game and tell me what you think of it? Yeah. And they'll give you their, trust me, at that point in time, they're giving you their So finding environments in which you can meet just people, because game developers will give you really good feedback on mechanics and time slow and whatever. It'll be their own kind of feedback. Right. It'll be reinforcing what you already know. Right. It will not be giving you information you don't already know.
Take complete neophyte type of feedback, which is
exactly. And typically, friends and fans are going to be too generous too.
They're gonna lie.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Want to read my novel?
Yeah.
Yes. Novel's awesome. The first time So, and of course, the other thing you can do too is create an honest feedback session for people, like a safe environment.
I was going to say, there might have to be some specific and consistent questions that you try to right, so that you can compare.
There's actually a way to design questions for feedback forms, like on a scale of 1 to 10. Don't tell me how good it is, because they're immediately thinking your product is good, which helps reinforce your stuff. But if you're really pessimistic, tell me how bad it is. They're now already thinking it's bad. Right. You can just say on a scale of 1 to 10, rate my game. So there's lots of words that you don't want to use because you're leading them by accident. And you want 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, like you're dealing with a younger crowd, 1 to 5. Older crowd, 1 to 10, because they tend to be more thoughtful, they have more time, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, there's
another one I heard was, how long did you think you were playing?
Yes.
As a replacement for, did you have fun?
Did you have fun? Yes. Would you recommend this? Who would you recommend it to? How would you describe my game?
Hours. One other, if I may, I'm just wondering, why you wouldn't, or whether you consider why you didn't actually release at a free level and then monetize for continued use or other levels. Whatever.
Yeah, and we had some people suggest selling because it's a hard game. I haven't even beat it yet, and I made it.
There's a question, by the way. Yeah. Games that are making games so hard they can't beat it. Yes.
Yes. I'll email all of you and be like, I beat my game. Have another party. I already forgot the question.
It was free level.
Free level. Having selling.
Give a free level
hints or tips or something. And really, we kind of lost the developer that helped us with that, and so it just hasn't been feasible to go back and change it right now.
Do you mean to produce new levels that would be paid? Or?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
We're trying to push forward.
That was the experience. Clockwork and
Mosaic
were both done by a developer we'd hired, and we kind of had a kind of
falling out.
falling out with things. So that's why Clockwork's on pause.
So that, if that happens, it's not worth your time then to find another developer. You just go.
Oh no, I'm trying to find one. Yeah, we're looking for a developer, but yeah, it's just we just aren't able to go back to it right now. Just don't have the time. Resources. Yes.
So I think it's interesting how you're calling this whole set of concerns and design considerations user experience design, because I think a lot of people from maybe the old school game dev world or the AAA game dev world would probably just call it game design or like creative direction or something like that.
Sure.
But I do think that probably more of the people who are coming from the mobile and web space are more likely to call it user experience, because it's kind of a term that's more familiar in that area. And it does tend to inject like a slightly different set of considerations and a different lens onto the problem. But you know, I guess do you think that there could potentially be, like, if you were working on a bigger team and there was someone who was like a game designer, that they felt super strongly about the like field of game design, the practice of game design, do you foresee that could potentially be like a source of conflict between someone that you're calling a user experience designer who would have like some purview over those aspects of game design that person would consider like their territory, but yet if you really are seeing the user experience as being the whole package, wouldn't there be some sort of like inherent conflict there?
Probably. I don't know.
So do you think this way of looking at it is better for like small teams?
Definitely,
stuff,
yeah.
Probably.
Yeah,
like,
probably smaller teams where you need to. I mean, I've only worked in a small team environment.
Yeah.
So I can't speak to 150 teams, but
I mean, I think that a lot of bigger studios would really benefit from this way of thinking, because I do know that a lot of bigger studios, like even when there is like a sort of a creative director type person, there are always little pieces that fall through the cracks because maybe they have their head like in so many other things related to like story or character development or whatever. They're not necessarily thinking about all the little micro interactions that occur as you move through like the intro screen to like the level selection to actually getting into the game itself and like getting out from, you know, and all that stuff. It's just how it all connects together. I think it could be valuable, but it seems like it would be an uphill battle to convince those studios to embrace that type of model.
Is that why so many of those older games have really bad UX? Because of that?
I mean, I kind of feel like also traditional like AAA studios, like the type of game developers that are working on those games don't really, they're just more focused on like the actual gameplay itself. And
which why it seems like a lot of mechanics just kind of put together into a game.
Actually, the real reason is because the VP of something or other's like something, and you have to put it in.
Sure.
No joke.
But I think it's a difference, right? What you're saying between a game designer designing a mechanic and then taking that mechanic and handing it off to a user experience designer, like she mentioned, who's actually saying, how do we integrate that into our voice and into our experience?
Yeah, exactly.
Well-done games have someone who does that. And they don't have a VP with a 4-year-old.
Not naming names, right?
Not naming names.
So I'm just interested in hearing kind of in that same vein. You said it was a lights out clone. So so you guys, when you showed your screenshots, it was really, from what it looked like, is the design you were kind of making as your product. So like a lot of times you go through a game and the design is make or break, the mechanics would be exactly the same. It's like, this is no longer fun because of like this visual element. So is that in a lot of your games? Do you how do you focus more on like the gameplay versus the design to balance out? Because I feel like I could miss a good gameplay mechanic because I didn't get the design right.
That's a good question as well, because being a designer, as you can see from all my slides, I always lean heavily towards the design side of things. But Please do chime in anytime. She is like so expert over here.
It's an art, so.
I mean, like, so the question you're asking about is why was Angry Birds more popular than every other tower defense game ever made? And the answer is design, and they brought it out to a bunch of customers who were not them, who weren't a bunch of geeky guys who had, I'm not trying to be offensive, but a bunch of geeky guys who had been playing video games for 30 years. They brought it to a bunch of people who've never played a video game before and said, here, what do you think? And they brought in some new ideas and new design to it. The core game mechanics are exactly the same. Okay, my sister doesn't know it, but she freaking loves side-scrolling platformers. But that's not what they look like.
Right.
They don't look like that. They don't look like 8-bit blocky stuff. They look really nice. And she would never call herself a hardcore gamer, despite the fact that she spends like 3 hours a day playing this video game on her iPad. I'm like, you have more time than I do.
Yeah.
But she does not call herself a gamer or think that she's a hardcore gamer, and she's totally playing a side-scrolling platformer better than I do. Okay, so take the classic gameplay stuff and bring it to a new audience, and take it visually someplace else, take it emotionally someplace else. I mean, if you look at video games, for a while it was kind of Wild West, but for the most part, for a long time it became guys with guns. And it was all about combat, all about warfare, and there was no humor, and there was no laughter and joy, and just all these other emotions. And now you see more games. I look at it and I go, that's mule with this, that's this with that, this is that with this other thing in here. So I can see all the gameplay mechanics underlying it. And what they're doing is they're adding a new emotional level and a new visual level over top of it. I mean, it's kind of like books, there's 7 plot lines.
Yeah.
And we have millions of stories, so, find the 7 gameplay mechanics and find the millions of stories. We just keep hammering the one, I am so done with the ball marine. When you see what I worked on, you'll know why.
But that said, there are people who are like super hardcore about inventing all these like new mechanics, trying to come up, even with threes, for example, like trying to come up with that like really perfect, weird new puzzle mechanic that's just going to be super addictive. And I mean, as far as how to create those or make them awesome, I mean, that's like a whole art in and of itself. And I'm definitely not an expert on that. I mean, we've had people who have given talks before who are like really into thinking really deeply about that particular challenge. And maybe we'll have more in the future. They're more heavily focused on that aspect of it, but yeah.
Well, it's at least as much art as it is algebra. It's knowing, basically the best way of system design ever is a handful of dice. You're doing quadratic formulas when you're doing that.
Sure.
You're defining a curve.
Yeah.
Or you're using Excel and doing the same thing.
Yeah. So, any other questions? All right. Well, thanks. Just going to quickly switch to Jennifer and start on.
Thank you. Sure. I actually wanted to, just while I'm getting set up here and I'm going to chatter randomly, she actually made a great point about, cut stuff. Because one of the things, like a film, nobody knows what hit the cutting room floor. If you think about when you're editing, you hit stuff and you cut features and you cut parts of features and you slice scenes together and you make a mess of it. Nobody knows any of that stuff except for you. And don't be silly and don't tell people. That's like our secret, okay? So I did not have like a little iPad thing, so I'll have to stand over here, which I'll be fine with. Do we have a remote, any chance?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh.
You might need to plug it into yours. There might be a thing.
Little dongle thingy. I'll figure it out.
If you want, I can just stand over there in advance.
No, I'll be fine. I'll figure it out. I wander anyway, so it's fine. So one of the things that you also mentioned was time. We don't have enough time. Our most valuable resource that we ever will have is our time. This has been my theme for the whole year and all of my talks is how do we use our time most appropriately? And one of the questions is, why should we do that? So this is me. This is part of me anyway. I started my career in 1998. Make all of the statements you want to later. I've worked on all of these titles to some extent. I've been a game designer. I've done UX design.
I've done product management, I've done VP management, I've done business development. I now run a conference, and I also work at a company that does mobile test prep. And it's an education technology thing. It's actually interesting for me because one of the things you might notice here is I haven't repeated myself. I don't like repeating myself because my time is valuable, my whole life is valuable, and doing the same thing over and over again as a grind is boring. So I won't do that. So one of the biggest kind of hurdles to life is, oh, that's so awesome. And I've gone through multiple industry shifts. I've gone from 2D to 3D. I've gone from no Wi-Fi to cloud. I've gone from single player to multiplayer to MMO to this whole tablet thing. I have my phone on me, but your phone is more powerful than the computer I used to make my first video game with. And it has Wi-Fi, and it has higher resolution, and better graphics, and better audio. So yeah, cutting edge is awesome. And this is what I feel like when I see all this fun stuff. I'm like, oh, shiny. And then we all talk about it, and we get in there, we have these sessions because we're all sleep deprived. And then we want to do this, right? Obviously, oh no, absolutely not. Let's stop. So the first thing I learned is if you want to ship something, you have to stop adding features. You have to focus. You have to keep yourself on track. And it's really hard when the whole world is filled with lots of new shiny stuff and you're very excited about it. So when you're a startup, and I've worked in essentially startup conditions for about 17 years now, and I'm working at one now, we have less than 10 people. These are questions you have to ask all the time. What is the most valuable thing I can do right now? Okay, all of you tonight have determined this is the most valuable thing to do tonight. You forego this and hang out with your families, working on your projects, exercising, whatever else. So what else can I be doing? You always have a list. Now the big thing is how what I am doing relates to my business needs. I'm not talking about the project, I'm not talking about my coworkers, I'm talking about the business. Because at the end of the day, brass tacks right down to it, we're all in a business, we're in an industry. If you want to stay in the industry, you're gonna make money. And it kind of sucks, but it's the reality of it. It would be wonderful if people just paid us to be creative, but they don't. They pay us for stuff they like. So we have to figure that out. We need to figure out what your business needs are. Who figures that out again? Oh, that would be the CEO. How many people here run their own studio? Come on, raise your hands. It's all you. That's you. You're the ones making your business decisions. You're the ones that are figuring it all out. And at some point in time, if you want to own your own company or you want to build your own project, crap, that's you. That's me. And when you're in a startup and you're one of 5 people, it's still you because you don't have any bandwidth to leave it on one person's shoulders. There are 5 questions. Well, technically there are 6, but where doesn't matter. The last bit, you can see my little controversial statement down here, what, when, who, and how. Agile has come up with a solution for that. They have a really good solution. And it was in response to the fact that nobody talked about why. Why are we doing this? Why is it important? How does this fulfill our business needs? Will our customer actually want this stuff? So people have spent umpteen hours iterating on junk. And engineers will come up with the most efficient system to deliver whatever you ask for. Please ask for the right thing. So what I'm really going to focus on is how do you focus? And there's 2 types of focus. There's your business focus, and what do you want to do with your business? And then there's your product focus, which supports your business focus. So there's lots of business focus, and it can come down to some pretty basic things. 1, do you want to sell your company? 2, do you want to go to IPO? Or 3, do you want to be personally owned forever? Those are your 3 things. Or do you want to do it as a hobby while you have a day job? Those are your 4 options. 1, 2, 3, 4. Does everybody understand that? I see some questions and things. Okay. All right, fine. So the company that I work for, they want to sell their company. That's what they want to do. Their goal is to get someone to buy the company. So all of our business decisions, all of our product decisions are made based on that goal. And when I was working for a company that wanted to stay independently owned, we made all business decisions based on staying independently owned. We didn't pick up projects that would tie us to one publisher. We didn't pick up anything that would give us exclusive to anything. We always made decisions based on that final business goal. And you need to figure that out. By the way, there is no right answer and there is no wrong answer. It's your answer. That's all that really matters. You're the one that makes that decision. Now, once you've made that decision and you bring people on to that decision and you change it, you're going to piss them off. Just to be really clear here, okay, somebody comes in thinking you're going to build an IPO, that's what they're there to do. They bought into your vision to build an IPO, and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I decided I don't want to do that. I want to sell it. What? They're going to be mad at you. So you need to identify, of course, your steps to your goal, and then the products that are going to support your business. And that's all, quite frankly, online, and you can find a lot of this stuff. As a matter of fact, if you go back and reread your Agile book and you focus on the first 20 pages, it's all right there. So I'm going to give an example of how we do this, how we actually go kind of day to day. So I'm a STEM company. This is our kind of growth agency. Who will buy out the company? That's what we want. We want to build a product so someone will buy us out. Same goal. But at the same time, we have this other underlying thing where we can build math skills for students. That's what we have to do. So our base thing is we're building an AI engine to assess math skills. That's the base core tech. And here are designed steps. So when someone comes to me and says, what's more important, working on a dashboard or working on the demo for the publisher in 2 weeks, I know the answer. It's working on the demo for a publisher in 2 weeks because dashboard is not our secret sauce. Okay, I can go and buy a dashboard off the shelf if I need to. That's not hard. So focus. What is the thing that only you can spend your time on and only you can do to get to your goals, whether it's for your business or for your product? Because there's lots of stuff out there. And while, yes, it's totally fun to for me to do UX design, it doesn't mean it's the best use of my time. And I do like to do interface design and a few other things, but it might be just better and cheaper to hire someone else to do it. So this is a list of our product parameters, things that we have dictated. I never make a decision against any of these things in the product at all. And I've actually done this for games. So for games, I finally got frustrated when I was working on The Sims. People kept coming up to me and asking me these really obvious questions. I was like, how do you not know the answer? And I realized I didn't have this in their head. So I sat down and I wrote out the 5 things in the Sims product, and I put them in my handwriting in giant black letters, and I pasted it into the entranceway to our hallway. And I said, if this answers your question, leave me the hell alone. And I save 10 hours every week. So the big part here is publishing this information. Don't keep it up here. You're gonna get bugged all the time. And 10 hours a week is one. So step 2, make sure everybody knows what your business goals are, what your product goals are. And make sure that when they know, they will always ask these questions. Every person should, when you're building a product, I don't care who you work for, does this product support the business goal, yes or no? If the answer is no, why am I not working on something more important? If this product does support the business goal, how? And how valuable is it? Is this the #1 priority or the #5 priority? Why am I not working on the #1 priority? Why am I not always focused on that fine point? And you need to put a fine point on what you're working on. So why should I be doing something more or less important? Because quite honestly, if your time is your most valuable resource and you're squandering it on building dashboards, you're in the wrong business. The thing that every one of us needs to do is develop our listening skills. This is the largest lack in society today. I despise Twitter. I really do. I hate Twitter. Twitter is a vehicle for narcissism, and it's a great way to talk at thousands of people who aren't listening. I don't want to talk to people who aren't listening to me, and I don't want to listen to people who aren't really talking to me. So we really need to focus on our listening skills. And when you are running a company, or you're part of a company or part of a team, you need to listen, and people need to listen to you because you're bringing expertise. I don't pay people because I want to see their, not trying to be offensive, but their pretty face in a chair for 40 hours. I'm paying them because they bring value to the table. And that's what you should be paying them for too. They should be bringing value to the table. And that's what you're paying them for, not their time in a chair. So if your employee disputes or makes a business case, or you dispute or make a business case, everyone needs to pay attention to that, especially on the dispute side. Go back to that cutting room floor, okay? A lot of stuff, the cutting room floor. I get product design in, I know immediately the first thing I do is find the 30% I can cut off. Let's just stop the arguments at the ludicrous right now. Find that 30%. I have yet to ship a product with 100% of the content ever, and I've shipped over 20 titles. Never happens. You need to ignore bad business stuff. This actually almost tanked one company I worked at. There's a hot new technology, and I won't name it because you might figure out who it is. And they were super excited, and I said, nobody cares, it's too early. It's gonna be awesome in 2 years, it's not 2 years from now. Let's finish the stuff that's stable and working, and will make us money and keep us until we get to the shiny new and everyone has adopted it. They didn't listen to me, and it launched in complete failure because it didn't work. Because the worst part about brand technology is it sucks. It really sucks. It's buggy, it's not stable. You don't want to be the first person to dance with that. I've been first on 2 different major technologies. I was one of the first engines that used Havoc, and one of the first people to use HTML5, and both of those experiences blew. So, and of course, you went really into it. Ask your customers. You are not your customer. I am not my customer. I've worked on The Sims. I hate The Sims. I worked on first-person games, and they make me nauseous. But I made good products, okay? Because I went and talked to the people who liked it. I went and I found those people, and I listened to them all the time, and I had them tell me what they loved about it and what they hated about it, and I got their feedback. Because I already knew, I came from a position where I had no idea what to do with this, but I found something to do with that. So you need to learn to listen. And if you can focus and you can listen, you can ship it. Because quite honestly, those are the 2 little secrets. Find your one point of focus. Learn to listen to the people around you. Learn to ignore the wrong people who aren't making a good case. And then just ship the stuff. Because as much as some things are amazing, if you never see them, they do not exist. So, there we go. That's my very short talk. Any questions? Yes.
I don't think, maybe you said it at the beginning, but I missed it. What was your actual role? Like, what have you been doing in the industry across the 20 titles?
Okay, so I started off as a designer. I did level designs for Heroes of Might and Magic 3. I started off as QA, and my whole story. I was QA, hired in 30 minutes. 3 days later, I was QA lead. 3 months later, I was lead level designer. So I became a producer a few years after, 3 years after that, actually. So the number 3 was really important to me for a while. And then ever since then, I've done product management.
That's what it sounded like.
Yeah,
and
business development. And then a couple years ago, I started Captivate Conference because I am passionate about people actually getting paid for their work. I am the weirdo. I care about people making rents. I have some serious horror stories for engineers who were homeless because they had issues and it wasn't necessarily their fault. So that's my current passion, is helping people understand how they can make a living and better themselves and all that other stuff. But that's a whole other 2-hour rant session.
Oh yeah, I had a question which was just, so I think all of this advice was amazing. I think what's tricky, where it gets hard, is that, and obviously you know as well, but in games, no, but it's like in games, it's like, it is partially like an art, and it is partially something that people are doing because they love it. Yes. And then that's even more true when it's like this, small indie studio that maybe you're doing as a side project from like your day job. Yeah. Or whatever, and then you're in this position where it's like, well, this is what I do for fun, so because it's fun, like, I just want to do the fun stuff, and if that means I'm just going to spend like 3 months off in some like random, tangent and doing this crazy thing and it ends up not working out, so be it. So I mean, it's like, how do you balance all of this like hard-nosed, like business case, like focused stuff with that like free-form artistic?
So it depends on what your day job is.
Yeah.
Okay. So if your day job is, if you're a designer and you're working in the world of web UX design, you get to continually practice and brush up on your skills. If you're a cashier at Kohl's, you might want to focus on earning money because doing what you want to do for a living. So if you're a programmer and you want to be making video games, but you're making large databases, you're still keeping your skill set fresh. If you're doing something in which your skill set is not remaining fresh, you need to get the hell out of it as fast as possible. It's not selling out at that point in time. It's making sure you stay relevant and you stay close to the industry. There's so many overlapping industries with the game industry. So you want to stay in those overlapping industries. But if you have to get out and become a desk jockey someplace that you despise and is soul crushing, it's not going to be any good. I heard from a writer friend of mine a long time ago who said if you have writer's block, don't walk away from your pen and paper, you just write. Write everything over and over and over again. So if you're having programmer's block, program constantly. But you can't do that if you've got to work some menial job that you just despise. Same thing with art and design. So if you're not being creative in your day job, then yeah. But if you've got a day job and it's supporting you and this is more of a kind of a meandering hobbyist, I might find it field, that's cool. But if you're trying to do this because I gotta earn a living and pay my rent and I get thrown out, really focus on that. I also have a great story. Mutual Mobile, anybody here ever Hang Time? Second worst app in the App Store ever, by the way. So this was the entire app. You chucked your phone in the air, no joke, right your hands, and it measured how long it hung in the air. And you caught it. Now, no, I'm not. That's the dumbest fucking thing ever. It is the dumbest fucking thing ever. I've watched $300 phones get smashed on the ground and I laughed at them. That was the second worst app in the App Store. Okay, it was called Hang Time. You can go look up the history of it. Mutual Mobile created it. It was retarded. They did it in like 40, 72 hours, chalked it up there. They made $150,000 off of it. The App Store pulled it because Apple was like, people are killing their phones. We need to pull this thing. But yeah, well, they actually found out that people who did skydiving were letting the phone go as they dropped. So they're diving out of the plane and they let their phone go to see how long they can hold their hands there and not drop their phone on the ground from 30,000 feet or whatever it was. It was ridiculous. So they created this whole genre of idiocy.
What was the number one?
iFart. iFart was number one. Yeah. So anyway, but the whole point of that is they had no interest in making stupid apps. That was never the point of what they wanted to do. It was enough to pay their lives for the next 2.5 while they worked on their real thing. So, their first goal was earn enough money to live. And that's what they did. They said, how can I get from point A to point B? And that's why I was talking about the whole, be the first one in the store, people will buy it because there's nothing else to buy. And that's what they found out. So yeah, and it is a balancing act. You don't want to crush your soul and,
sure.
But at the same time, you've got to eat. Yeah. I highly recommend earning enough to eat food. Highly recommend. Starving is really not cool.
Yeah. Contracting is a good way to handle it too. You can work for 6 months to a year and then take a year off to work on your shit. As long as you have decent financial discipline, you can do that, and that way you can. Yes. You don't have to prostitute your game to the market, but at the same time, you still get to eat.
Exactly. So that's really what it is about. And the other point you were talking about too was you explored it, and part of what we're talking about is focus. If you went and you focused on that, then that's what you did, and you decided it was terrible, and you cut it. You gotta cut it and let it go. It's when people hang on to that and then they try to munge it into the other stuff that it becomes this really ugly zombie of feature creep.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what he says, obviously you need to have employers and contractors that are okay with you doing other stuff on your own time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Aren't jealous about it.
You can be clear where those lines are, which parts of your brand they own and which ones they don't.
Companies have to be, and there's always a contractor talk on the legal side of how to be contractors. So yes, shameless plug.
Still love.
Any other questions?
I have one for the audience. So how many people who have worked with someone like Jen, either in project management or business development, that was their job, like who has worked with someone like that position?
I had that out there, manager.
Yeah, just keep your hand up if you have. And then, of those people, how many of those people that you understood what their value was or could articulate, or they could articulate their value as well as you could?
She's flopping over there.
Dealing with that today.
Well, that you've also experienced them doing that, because I mean, most of the time it's kind of a formal position.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have that job, so it's assumed that they're in charge, whatever that means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How many of them actually tells you, you know, this is what I'm doing?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's changing then. So.
When I got in, like what a producer did was they pretty much found out of other work.
Yeah.
And they said, well, so we're going to give you the easy job. We're going to let you manage all these team of people who hate each other.
Or the
So yeah, by the way, managing people who they don't hate each other. So we all speak different languages.
Mm-hmm.
I had a conversation with my engineer today. I said, I'm sorry, but you just said words that don't make any sense to me. I've got 17 years listening to engineers and I live with one. Try that again.
Yeah.
So, but you have to have a certain amount of humility to do that. And not everybody does. Not everybody wants to admit that, hey, I don't understand what this person said. Or they think, oh, they're trying to make me look stupid. I can go into team management for a seminar. 7 hours. So.
So how much would you charge to give this speech to a classroom of project managers?
I would charge them about, because it would be a 2-hour session, I'd probably charge them about $200. $200, I will give you the seminar on how to do it the right way.
Is that catered or not catered?
Not catered, I'll have to add some extra money on it because there's a lot of beer involved.
I give them a hard time, but it's actually, I feel the pressure that they feel from on high. So like usually their target's changing because their goals are being changed for them. So.
Yes, it is, and that goes back to that business goal, which is why I like to talk about business goals with people who are just starting their own work, because then that is a baseline requirement. If you're starting your own company or you're working in a small company, you have to have a business goal, and everyone should know what it is. Upper management should not be going, you producer, you tell everybody. Upper management should be saying, this week's unswerving goal is X, and we're all working towards that. And they're conveying that to the entire team. I don't tell the customer service rep at my company what the goal is. The CEO tells the customer service rep what the goal is every Monday. And we have a weekly goal and we have a continuing online, how is this weekly goal feeding into our final goal? And that's their responsibility to make sure everybody's crystal clear on that. Because like you said, with lack of clarity, it's hard. It's hard to find that. And yes, trying to take feedback from a 4-year-old is really not easy. I don't recommend it. So.
Any other questions? No? All right, well, feel free to hang out, and thanks again. Feel free to hang out for a few more minutes, have some more drinks, chat, and all. Thanks, Jen.